Well, let me just introduce a little bit about the panelists today. First is Yeo Min. She's a pastry chef and the author of the award-winning cookbook Chinese Pastry School. And she is also the co-founder of Museum of Food, a non-profit dedicated to heritage food education in Singapore. And next we have Murni, who is the co-founder of Sendok Rakyat, a ground-up initiative that preserves and celebrates Malay food narratives to nurture community bonds, strengthen self-identity, and work towards effective change. And lastly, we have Vasun. She is a passionate chef known for her from-scratch approach to South Indian cuisine. Her work is grounded in deep interest in the culinary histories of the Indian Ocean, and she was also a contestant on MasterChef Singapore Season 2. So we'll start off this panel by me having this question for all of you. Why do you do what you do, and how do you do it? You can start with Yeo Min.
Yes. Why do I do what I do? There's a lot. It's a very big question, Toffa. So my main gig now is to run the Museum of Food. We recently found a physical space, and we're very happy about that. Yeah. So we structured ourselves as a non-profit because we got kind of the vibe that heritage food education is not accessible to everyone in Singapore. There's many pockets of us that don't access it, or don't get the opportunities to. So it's kind of the reverse of what used to happen in the past, right? Where we get to learn from our families, or our home econ syllabus will include very more traditional foods. Now it's like recently, oh my gosh, this is on the record. Recently, there was a school that approached us to do some workshops, and then we said that, okay, we do heritage food, Singapore's food. It could be something that you eat at home. It doesn't have to be like a really difficult recipe. We'll modify it so that it's easy for the primary schoolers. And then they came back with, our teacher said that sushi and pizza are our children's food. And then we were like, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what's a gist of what's kind of happening across Singapore now. And we've seen the closures of heritage food shops, a lot of the Chinese pastry shops. That's what got me into, started on writing my book back when I was in pastry school. I realized I cannot disappoint my ancestors. That's what got things rolling. And then now we are trying to make this happen. So the Museum of Food, yes.
Murni?
Hello. Hi. So why do I do what I do? I was raised in a transitional shelter. During the teenage years of my life, I was surrounded by, of course, the community service New Hope, who has helped me, who has helped a lot of children under that shelter, along with the my secondary school teachers, and of course the people that is also going through the same things with us. Through that, I guess, heritage, it's the way we are practicing right now. I feel like I'm answering like the last question. Sorry. Heritage at the moment, food and heritage at the moment, it feels like, it's often romanticized, and the way we want to deliver is to actually like validate the complexities within the oral tradition itself. So I guess by the way, I ran a groundnut initiative with my husband, Akid, over here. So we talk about the spicy things around the food itself. For us, it's Malay food in Singapore. We run programs. We talk about, running programs like, of course you have to put up like nasi ulam workshop, things that seem cute, right? But really, really, really to the bottom of like the conversation itself, we want to talk about identity, creating this safe spaces of how we can approach to the kitchen and how we can like, in a hopeful way, like bring on tradition and heritage in our own ways, as unconventional as it is. Yeah. Thank you.
And lastly, Vasun?
Hello. Yeah, good. So now that you've had food for your belly, so some food for thought now. So I'm Vasun. My full name is Vasunthara Ramasamy, so just Vasun is good. So what I do is just a bit of background. Not many people know this. I am an educator by training, and then I did a complete switch in career during COVID. I used to toggle between both industries, and it got too much for me. So during COVID, I this after MasterChef. So what I do now, actually, really, and pushed in that direction of food, is I'm a self-taught chef. But what I do is a space that intersects between cooking, research, storytelling, and a lot of research into. I use food as a way to understand who I am and where my ancestors come from. I am Singaporean Indian, but I fall in a space that is not really accepted as Indian when I go back because I have some Chinese heritage with me as well. So who I am is also how I define myself. But I like using food as a way to understand how my ancestors thought, ate, and did things, and also what my grandparents ate and how I eat now. And all these are interesting ways to understand food. So what I do really is I found that the best way to engage in conversation is to have food before you talk. So food opens up a lot of, I think it makes you more open and to ideas. And so I run a private dining space, and it's a long-held dream of mine to really cook for more people, because it's really boring to cook for two people, my husband and I. So there's a lot more interesting things I can do with when I invite people. So I have my home. I open up my home and I have a private dining session where you bring in a group. Not advertising here. It's called Cutlery Optional. And everything that I have done for that space is intentional to who I am and my origins and my culture. So hence cutlery optional, a nice way to say please use your hands to eat. And also bringing the conversation of what really makes us food. Why is food different when you use your hands versus utensils? What's the reasoning, the rationale, the importance of using hands for sharing the food? So my space intentionally has plates that we share from, and rather than individual plates. And I also in forming the menu. So I say South Indian because the conversation around, loosely the term Indian food, though it doesn't exist, is to bring more awareness as to what makes Indian food what it is. What is Singaporean Indian food and as? So the space has been really successful, and I've been doing it since 2022. So I also, for the formation of menus, I travel very frequently to India because I took a 5-year visa and when I would utilize it fully. I travel very frequently. I meet culinary home cooks to chefs to people who grow things. And that actually broadens my own understanding. And with that, I bring it back to the space in my home. And so hence, it's a lot more than food that I share. To broaden the conversation of what makes Singapore Indian food what it is. Thank you.
Okay, on that note, you mentioned what is Singapore Indian food and also, what is Singapore food. So we know the well-established canon of, let's say, chili crab, fishhead curry, Hainanese chicken rice, laksa, nasi lemak, roti prata, char kway teow, satay, and the Singaporean breakfast, kaya toast. Do you feel that they truly reflect the tastes, traditions, and histories that shape Singapore's culinary landscape? And how does your work try to kind of add to this conversation of what Singapore food is? Maybe we can start with Vasun. Yeah.
I think what we can get from the general consensus, from the very first speech, the opening note, is that the world we navigate now is a very different area, as well as Singapore's landscape has changed so much. Yet the the food that is still being showcased as what is Singapore food has remained largely the same. And with respect to Singapore Indian food, the conversation needs to go deeper than just prata, nasi biryani. Biryani depends on how you say it. But what makes that Singapore food? And so the question of labor and migration is not there. And so if we were to say, is food eaten by the people of Singapore, then we should add a lot more things to our canon now. But it's also, my grouse is not so much of whether it's reflective of Singapore, is how we have not matured as a nation to go beyond the conversation as this is Singaporean food. Because that has been the conversation when STB started maybe years ago to promote, and it's largely still the same. So even if you have Michelin Guide and everything, it largely follows the same pattern. And what happens to the rest of us who are Singaporean? So in my food space, my private dining, I bring in food which is from Kerala, for example. So why is, or Malayali food, why is Malayali food not part of Singapore food, or is it? So these are people who have also existed in the same time frame as all the labor and migration in Singapore. So why is that not part of the conversation? And who gets to decide what happens to be in the canon again and again? Because what I've noticed is that there's only the two biryani and prata. So even if I meet people, the conversation is, oh yes, I love biryani and prata. I know they want to establish some kind of a camaraderie that, yo, I understand your food. But actually, I feel a little insulted sometimes. Because after 40, 50 years of your existence, these are the only two things that you can talk about, right? Right? Whereas if I ask this conversation about, say, French food and Japanese food, people are a lot more well-versed with it. So my question is, what is Singapore food then? Is it the food that you like, or the food of your peers, your colleagues, your neighbors? How much do you know them? So this conversation has to be much broader, and it has to be a public consensus as well. So SCB has its own priorities, but as a nation, what is our food? We are so vocal when it comes to, when people claim things like nasi lemak, or we love to engage in these fights, food fights. But what exactly makes Singapore nasi lemak different from Malaysian nasi lemak? Right? Is there a difference? Is there a different nasi lemak from different communities? Those are the questions that we should be asking ourselves. So we are foodies, we consume food, but we're rarely educated about food and where it comes from. Yeah.
Perhaps, Min, you want to add to that?
So when I tell people I co-founded the Museum of Food, sometimes you can see Straits Times article, Facebook comment section, is the museum empty? It's the first thing that people say, or like, museum for show. And then I get where a lot of us are coming from. I don't know if these commenters are Singaporean or Malaysian, or neighbors, who say that what is Singaporean food? But note that we don't call ourselves the Singaporean Museum of Food or Museum of Singaporean Food, or we intentionally left out the word because we don't want to. We thought there was no meaning in drawing lines, around what makes a dish Singaporean. And we have this poster outside our space. It says, "What is Singapore's food if not our collective memories of it?" Yeah, so it's a reminder that every meal we have, every dish that we pay for is a vote for the food that we want to see continue staying in Singapore. Every meal that we cook as well at home. So I know in my generation, a lot of us are cooking based off TikTok recipes. I'm 30 by the way, so not Gen Z, but almost Gen Z. Yes. So a lot of us are cooking the food that we see on K-dramas. Some now trending C-drama. So we cook the food that we see, Zhang Linghe and whoever, they're cooking.
Sorry, what's that?
There's this drama called The Pursuit of Jade. I never watched it, but my mother is crazy about it. Okay, I hope she doesn't see this. Yeah, so yeah, it's just a reminder to think more consciously about what makes our food and what are the food memories we want to seed for the next generation. And now we are seeing children, so we work across the age groups, right? So we have children as young as 2 making pineapple tarts with us. Of course, we simplify it for them. So I do the first steps for them. Then they do the chop, chop, chop. They put the pineapple paste. Then they are very happy. We also work with seniors as old as we have met 93. So we have like the full age range, right? And then we are seeing the children come ask us, pandan, is it like matcha? You know, when we mash the pandan leaves, then they're like, oh, that's like pesto. And then I'm like, girl, where is this coming from? Like, yeah, so I think it's it's great that they know what pesto is. I also hope they know
They're
what
very global citizens.
Yes, it's very global citizens. So I hope that as much as they know what guac is, they know what a chutney is. And before they they know how to make pesto, maybe learn how to make a sambal. So that's the things that we are trying to intentionally seed for the next generation. And yeah, it's fine that they know pesto and matcha, but please also know your pandan and gula melaka. And yeah, so we bring out things like, I faced this before, like know your local ingredients as well, right? So we were like, a coconut, what does a coconut look like? They all only know Mr. Coconut. I was like, have you not drank like from a coconut in a hawker center? And then all the parents are like, no. No, they have a lot of them have not tried. Yeah, so that's a roundabout way of saying I don't have an answer for your question. What is Singapore's food? It's what we choose for it to be. Yeah.
Okay, and how about you, Murni? Is there something you'd like to add or disagree with?
I think the food that you listed out, except for chili crab, but crab is damn expensive. They're all accessible for the everyday people, right? They are food that is cheap. It's accessible when you go to hawker centers and stuff like that. So I'm sure we shouldn't diminish those parts. Wait, sorry. This is my first panel, by the way. Okay. Yeah. Woo! Yeah. I think the way we do. Okay, this is an anecdote because we ran a Celok Boyan program for Singapore Heritage Fest the past weekend. Celok is tamarind soup, Boyan is bawean. It's like a subgroup of Malay people. And surprisingly, a lot of non-Malays are like people who came in. They are quite surprised by this heritage that we have. So I'm sure this is just a display of we need to do a lot more work in terms of showcasing all these different parts of heritage that we have, and not only be monolithic, right, one to one for each, in this CMIO framework thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, my one is quite brief. So I guess food is. Singapore food shouldn't be. Wait, what's the question again? Sorry, do you know what?
Do you agree with the canon,
Yeah.
And whether there's anything being left out or missing?
Yeah, I think
you have addressed,
Yeah, I think I did.
Being keeping to the CMIO model.
Yeah.
Which is also something that Vasun kind of touched on, Indian food is so much more than just Indian with the capital I. There's so many different ethnicities, sub-ethnicities and subgroups that make up Indian food, like the Malayali community, even the Balinese, right? Yeah. And somehow, when you go out to your food court, you see a store saying Malay food. What is it exactly, right? Or a store saying Indian food. We don't really know what actually is being sold, apart from that category. Yeah. So I think we kind of touched a bit about the pressures that are being faced by the Singapore, culinary scene, apart from rising rent, affecting F&Bs, and also having less and less people cooking at home. Based on your experiences in your heritage education, right? So each of you do, in a way, a sort of heritage education for the public. Based on your observations and experiences, what is the most pressing issue that's facing Singapore's culinary scene? You have something to say
No,
first?
you looked at me. So for me, it's education. That's why I'm very much in that space. So from the little ones, exposing them to what heritage food is, I think thinking long term, they are the consumers, right? So if you ask the average teenager, what do you crave like on an average day after school? Bubble tea, I don't know, mala. And then you work your way down and then you ask the little ones, what are they eating? And you realize that these are going to be the future consumers. And they are going to be the ones voting for what dishes get to stay in Singapore. And if we are all going to be craving not our own heritage food, then of course the heritage businesses have to close down, right? So that's one. So that's the consumer's perspective. The other one is culinary school. So I was trained in social work before, and then I worked for 2 years, and I was like, okay, not my thing. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to culinary school. I'm gonna go to pastry school, and I'm going to train locally because it was COVID anyway. And then there were government grants, so I went to pastry school thinking I was gonna do like French stuff. Yeah, and yes, we did a lot of French stuff there, but it was there that I realized that, oh my goodness, like I can't make a Chinese pastry to save my life. And we were not learning the basics of like how to cook mooncake fillings from scratch. We were told explicitly, you can just buy this from Phoon Huat. So to learn how to cook a lotus paste, for example, it takes hours, and it was something that I had to learn myself, like outside of school. Yeah, so then where are our heritage shops going to find successes? We just saw another shop, Wing Song Fatty's restaurant is closing down end of June, Cantonese restaurant. And the reason for closure is the lack of successes. Why? We have so many culinary students graduating every year. We are all heading to Michelin restaurants. I got my internship at a kueh factory, and all my chefs were like, huh, what happened? You cannot secure Michelin star internship. I was rejected by a restaurant, but that's not why I went to a kueh factory. Yeah, so there's a lack of education on both ends, the consumers and the producers.
Murni?
Like the pressures of heritage, right?
Based on your experience.
I think when we set out to run Sendok, it's a very competitive space. Because we want to chase for the next new thing every time. Like there's an ongoing pattern of, okay, we have to do a new workshop each time, and then it's just like, sometimes I came to a point where, is this exploitative, or is this like, are we like making caricatures out of our own cultures? Because I do feel like there is, that pressure that to many may not see, but it is a very competitive culture within as well. And then for us, like we tried our best, so we are pretty slow at doing things. Sendok is very slow at doing things because we are also taking account of the research that we do, and are we validating people, especially hawkers, the relationship that we build with the hawkers themselves as well, are not just like, oh, okay, I come to you, okay, uncle, come and you beep up my petul, and then suddenly he's just like, oh, and I think with that also, this really, I also think that with this competitiveness, also it's important that we take a step back just to see how we are able to build a better, stronger relationship within this ecosystem. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Well, I have something to ask as a follow-up question, but we'll go to Vasun first. Regarding your experience, and what's the most pressing issue you feel?
In Singapore?
Yes, in Singapore. Or elsewhere, if you have adds to that.
I think to having traveled a lot over the past decade or so, I would say you would see in cities, and what Yeo Min was saying, there is a common copy-paste pattern, which is the matcha craze or anything, the trend base. And that's very much the we live in the times of TikTok and Instagram. But what is different in Singapore compared to our Southeast Asian counterparts is, and I feel it's the most pressing, is the lack of home cooking. Because, so for example, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, they're crazy. They go out to eat, they buy a lot of, and young people drive that industry of the trend-based food. But at the end of the day, they go back to what is food of belonging to their people. And it's to me, in Singapore, for me, that's the pressing issue because that is your identity as a person. So if we are very fluid in Singapore in terms of embracing change and trends, and I feel, and it comes down to really family, and how that family dynamics has changed dramatically over the past 2 decades. Within my lifetime, I see a huge shift in who does the cooking, whose responsibility it is for not just the cooking, but in practices, traditional practices that ground us to who we are. So as Singaporeans, we all have multifaceted like racial backgrounds. But who are we? Because we are both Singaporean, and I'm Singaporean and Indian. I don't fit into India. So that my identity is very much anchored to being in Singapore. But increasingly, I find that there isn't a space for a Singaporeanness to thrive, rather a trend-based approach to just keep going every weekend to a cafe, eat and be done with. I say this because even during festivities where people take extra effort, everything is being outsourced. So going back to the point of making mooncake fillings from scratch, and comes down to family, again, the dynamics. In the past, we had a lot more people in the kitchen to help out. Hence, all this arduous work was usually spread over many people. You have people to do this work. And in Singapore, that is becoming very difficult in terms of people, that our family size is smaller. Space is a number one thing. I can't even find place to gather people to eat sometimes. It's just so difficult, let alone our busy schedules. So inevitably, now home cooking has become, I'm sorry to say this, but what our domestic helpers cook at home. And this ties in with the issue with also school canteens. And again, the pressing issue for me is, what are the young people growing up to feel nostalgic about Singapore? I mean, I can't stand Singapore for many reasons, but food is something I love. And also air conditioning, you know, when you step into the airport and I feel the strong sense of Majula Singapura, you know. Yeah, there are certain things I'm frustrated about being Singaporean, but I like that because we can have conversations, you know, we're not violent or people generally. But food, so for me, not cooking at home, not having canteen food, then what are the young people growing up to think is Singaporean food? Ramen? Right? So even young chefs that I speak to have more knowledge about ramen cooking techniques and French techniques than actual cooking techniques of your people. I mean, your people means whoever your ancestry is, you know, like, because why are some cuisines more elevated or considered elevated than your own? Do we have an identity crisis as Singaporeans? It's a question, and it comes down from food, because people may think, you know, food is something you just eat and you pass out, you know, it's like nothing, nutrition, you know, you can just make protein shake. But actually, really, when I think about it, it's your identity, the memories that you have, and that's what anchors you to your home, your family, your country, your people. Who are my people? Are Singaporeans, you see. So what is it? And I feel that is the biggest danger in food and everything, is the family unit is changing and our practices are not adapting. We are so open to the outside world that we forget who we are. Our sense of rootedness is not there. And food is a place that's really suffering, because you'll see a lot more representation in Michelin Guide for other cuisines than our own. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, we are very open, and hence we have all these different cuisines from elsewhere around the world that comes in and becomes And technically, wouldn't it over time become part of Singapore food culture? Because I grew up with bubble tea. And I would say that, there's a certain version of bubble tea, like the blue color, cool breeze with the pearl, is for me something Singaporean. I would drink it with my friends, or a certain ramen brand that's only found in Singapore by a Singaporean investor or something, which is totally different from ramen that you get in Japan. And it's maybe a bastardized version of ramen, but it's still something that I grew up with, and I would see it as something that me as a Singaporean grew up with. Can the definition of Singapore food then expand to something like that? Yeah.
I think we forget that Singapore was always a port city. We are always open to new people and immigration, migration. Migration is a big part of our identity. I'm not a proponent to say that you must eat traditional food. That is the most boring life, really. Because when I was younger, I ate all kinds of crap. All. And in my biggest, I look forward to eating like 10, 20 cents packet, I'm that old, of kaka, like the chicken. Oh yeah, my God, just running across the road to buy from the shop is like, I look forward to that.
Can you explain for a portion of us what kaka is? Yeah.
I feel this is like it's a snack, but that doesn't matter. It's just that now, nothing you can buy for 10 or 20 cents. I mean, the fish stick that you get, like a satay, what they call a satay stick. You can buy things with 10 cents. So after a hot day in the classroom, we didn't have air conditioning then. You will go across, you buy the 10-cent stick of water, colored water. Yes, so that's the other thing. We ate all kinds of crap growing up, but I'm still here. But meaning, those are memories you form. You can't force people to change. I feel then there's no creativity in the food as well. Food is evolving, it's not static. But we also must be rooted to know who you are, to allow what works and what doesn't work. Because then you're always shifting. Then who are you then? Then you feel like you're rootless. You feel a sense of lost identity, maybe even sadness that you don't belong somewhere. But I must say, it is a part of Singaporean identity. It has evolved a lot more now than before because we have social media. So I'm extremely curious how things taste. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when I'm sick, I travel, and if I had kids, the food I would feed them is really the food of what I grew up with. And that's changing. So I feel, like I said, everywhere you go, you'll have these trends everywhere. We're not unique to that everywhere. In fact, there's some places that are scarier than in Singapore, actually. And I think this question is also a sense of, like, if you go to certain cities where they are much rooted, like, okay, example, Bangkok. Everybody loves to go to Bangkok, but nobody understands why Thai food is so good. Because they evolve with trends, but they're rooted in who they are. So you can make, say, example, a tom kha, but you have a version of tom kha, but then the understanding of tom yum is so good. Hence, they can evolve it. If you don't know what a good tom kha, a good rendang is, how can you make a version of it? It doesn't make sense, you see? So because your sense of self in terms of food is strong. So in Singapore, I feel we are sort of like a boat drifting along wherever the tide brings us, actually. Yeah, and I feel that is the most dangerous thing. Because 10 years from now, without food canteen, I don't know. I feel so sad looking at those.
Sorry, can I
Please.
jump in
Yes.
right there? So talking about like creating new dishes and fusion foods without knowing the original, the OG, and what it's supposed to taste like, I feel like it's something that I see a lot in the pastry field. There's a lot of, I want to recreate mooncakes because I'm so French, and then mooncakes are so dense and so heavy, and but there's no understanding behind how mooncake is eaten, and how desserts are like. Yeah, there's no concept of a gelato in a Chinese meal, in a traditional Chinese meal. You don't eat cold stuff. You end a meal on whole sugar. So like that's why you find like yam paste, right? Because it's a whole it's natural sugars. There's no ice cream. There's no mooncake is not supposed to be a end of meal kind of dessert. So so I've seen a lot of that amongst my peers, or like someone trying to make tau sa pia. It's actually a mochi with a print on top. There's no bean element inside. There's no semblance of tausa. But yeah, there's just that, I need to recreate this traditional thing because my traditions, like my culture is uncool, kind of vibe. Yeah, so I just hope, I think that fusion food is great, and trying to get the French people to taste pandan is great. But
Pandan is the next big thing.
Yes, yeah,
in the white people world.
yes, but so my biggest brag is that to promote my book, I went to Paris and then I sold ang ku kueh to the French people. Yes, I did not modify at all. I steamed it 4x4 in my little Airbnb pot. There's no steamer there, so I had this little setup. You just learn to adapt, right? And then I steamed it 4x4. I got it all out to the cafe and we sold it to people, like French people. Yeah, and I think fusion food is great, but we should know the basics first and appreciate it and not come from a place of, I want to erase my culture. Yeah, and therefore I'm innovating. Yeah.
Okay, one more.
Very quick. The other danger in food, and this one I see more in the chefing world, is the need to always appeal to a Western palate. So hence we modify everything, from the manner of eating to the execution of the dish, infuse a French technique, throw in some cumin, voila, Indian food, you know. Though cumin is not really Indian, nor is whatever espuma, anything. I mean, it's just a semblance of it being Indian, which is not bad, as in if it's part of a repertoire of other dishes. So the place that we come from is always that our food is not good enough. And also, like, for example, let's use the example of ang ku kueh. What is ang ku kueh? Where does it come from? Who are the people who made it? Are there versions of it? Are there different ways or techniques? And so I wish we gave it more thought than we give the Western food and Japanese food. Because as much as we love Japanese food, we don't think why the food is really good. So why is it our histories that have lasted even longer don't have that food, or why we are not paying attention to that? I feel there's also, especially in the restaurant world, because like as if I cannot be myself when I sell things. I have to be somebody else, you know, like myself is not good enough.
Sorry, but sorry.
Wait, sorry, Murni.
Okay. What?
Okay. Sorry, Yeo Min, can we have Murni add first? I think she has something to say here.
Seems like a very spicy question.
Yes.
Yeah. I think, coming from, because I'm just really a pasar goer, home cook, experiencing all this all these everyday life things. I was an IT support analyst, so it was a very entering this heritage, this industry also. It's very like whoa. So I think that for us, we truly believe in doing things ground up, right? Like however ways the kids are trying to get in touch with culture, however ways that, whoever wants to approach to the kitchen, I think it's important that we validate their experiences as, and not to I guess it's, there's that, we were like thinking about, okay, Boyani's, going back to, I'm sorry, because it just happened, right? So like, is there any, we question authenticity of like the food itself. I do believe it will be very I think fusion has happened a long time ago, and it's not like something that is of recent. It's not something of a trend. It has been happening since immigrants came into Singapore, and even mee soto la, mee siam. Mee comes from the Chinese people. I like pointing her like Chinese. You are the one who did me. Yeah. Soto comes from soto is from Indonesia, and then it suddenly meets in Singapore itself. Fusion has happened a long time ago. So I do think that it's important that when we approach the current situation at the moment, especially with how I'm sure. Okay, I know I'm exposing myself Hot Hideout, for example. Hot Hideout, being like, oh, this is a Singaporean mala, and you get what it means because not that I tasted it, but also because it has taken out the numbness and then it just like becomes spicy just for Singaporeans. So in some ways, like, okay. So we start to like trace. It's kind of like it helps in tracing back into what is Singaporeans food taste like, palate like, yeah. So yeah, things like that. Yep.
Sorry, Min, you have to. Sorry to cut you there.
No. I was just going to say that on Vasun's point of how we feel like we have to change our food for the Western palate. I was doing a pop-up, and then it was our own people that would come to me and say like, oh, one pia, how can you sell for $5? And a French lady came by and like, oh, is this pastry? And I'm like, yes, it's Chinese pastry. And she's like, okay, I'll have 3 of this. Yeah, so it was, I think that was the like heart-wrenching moment.
I want to go back to one point that Murni brought up about the competitiveness within the heritage ecosystem, right? Can you explain a bit more? Because I mean, like, and also, you also mentioned about, because it means there's a lot of demand for it, right? And how do you then ensure that you do not present a caricature of your own culture or your own identity? And what do you want to present to the audience when they attend your programs?
Wow, it's a very big question. Everything is a big question. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I think the competitiveness. Okay, because there's so many different groups, right, within the heritage industry. I don't call myself a practitioner because we run programs on like with Singapore Heritage Fest mainly, as you can see, is within NHB right. So it's I mean, the competitiveness is when when someone else is like coming out of this, like, when the person is young and the person is like, I got a thing to do, and then everyone is coming into that space and like, hey, I want to get a piece of that. Like it sounds so jarring, like, get a piece of this like person and be a part of like collaborations and stuff like that lah. So I do think that it's like I do fall into this like imposter syndrome also at some point, because when Sendok started, it was a food diary. It was essentially it's a social media platform, right? It started with a food diary, and then it goes on into somebody, people from Fincrafted reached out to us to run workshops. So it's just like, we started to like see, oh my gosh, are we missing out things to portray? So that's what I don't know. That's what I think in my way, in my terms, they are competitive because, people want to find you for, okay, you do Malay culture, so I want you to, can you please be a part of this stuff that I do? And then I'm just like, okay, I don't really know these things that well. But also, I think, I also believe that, I'm sorry, am I digressing in some ways?
No, yeah.
I do think that, yeah, sorry. I do think that I spoke to my husband, Akid, yesterday, that I don't want to be a champion of my culture. I don't want to be a champion, like, so nobody should be that. The idea, it should be like, okay, I open up a space for you, for this other person to talk, and the conversation keeps on going. So that's what I think that is very important lah. Yeah.
So more of like a facilitator.
Yeah.
You want to facilitate discussions.
Yeah. So like, because obviously food is a very easy conversation, right? Like, that the other day Vasun made us like thosai, and it's just like I keep eating like at least three thosai that she made, because, and then the conversation keeps on going. So yeah, and then I hope that with this facilitated conversations, we keep on, the heritage keeps living on from there. Yeah.
Okay. So for what would you say to, this is for the whole panel, what would you say to someone who wants to dive into or be part of this ecosystem, heritage ecosystem, based on the challenges you faced, or the naysayers are like, food, museum of food, what is that, empty is it, got people come, so how do you then is it sustainable even, right? Like, how do you then attract people to come into this ecosystem, especially when we have recognized that certain heritage foods are dying or diminishing, certain traits or certain skills are, disappearing. Yeah.
So I'll say first that we set up as a non-profit because we knew from the outset there's no money in this. Yeah, so we were like, okay, there's no point trying to be a for-profit anyway. So we'll be a non-profit, and I haven't drawn a salary from this in 2 years. So we've just been building this with our community and hopefully get to a point where it becomes more sustainable. Yeah, but our approach has always been to underprice things. Okay, not to say underprice. Okay, I think what we have seen is that there's a skill that there's not much demand for. So like for example, kueh making. Then suddenly like it reaches a point where there are so few kueh practitioners that people are willing to pay like $200+ for a kueh class. But then that leaves the rest of us. There's a vacuum for the rest of us who cannot afford $200 and like 3 hours to learn like 4 recipes, for example. Then so we are trying to, okay, this is like econs story, but I only have JC econs A-levels. Yeah, but so we are trying to price it at a point where people who don't know that they want this or don't want this yet, they are able to afford it and they are willing to spend this amount and this amount of money and time to be with us to get started first, and then we'll see how that grows from there. Yeah, because I used to teach cake decorating, so I also do buttercream cakes because that's the only thing that I feel like I can sell without dying from cooking mooncake paste. Like people pay $100+ to learn how to decorate, like pipe a flower. Yeah. Whereas for kueh, I price it at like we have a bajang workshop coming up. We priced it at $88. We haven't had any sign-ups yet. Yeah. So we are still trying to figure out what works, and I think having our own space now means that we can decide what workshops we have to put out. What, like out of responsibility, we have to offer this, and what workshops people are like looking to have, and then we kind of have a bit of both, so we don't die. Like at least must be able to pay rent. There's our basis, and then hopefully work to a point where we can also draw a salary. Yeah.
Anything else to add, Murni or Vasun? Sorry. What would you say to someone who wants to enter the heritage industry, and also like based on the challenges you faced within this ecosystem, is it sustainable? Yeah.
I think because I think for that question, right, I do feel like it's important to stay, I don't know how to say this, like how to make sure that whatever, when you do things, sure, you can be fun about it, right? It's important, like, people to enjoy it and stuff like that, but also like how you deliver also, it needs, I don't know, I resonate to people when they are riddled with like, okay, the passion and the intention, especially when they deliver, when they want to enter the heritage industry. Not that I'm like, hey, you cannot come in, it's not that. It's just that I think I've seen patterns where there is this like, they are trying a lot of, because we all trying to find money, so there's a problem with like, I want to monopolize, I want to get into like this part here, but then again, like, what is your core intention? What is your purpose into even coming into this like into this space? Yeah.
I think we have to wrap up the session because studio is looking at me. But okay, thank you panelists.